Welcome to the Digital Enterprise Society podcast, addressing all aspects of the digital enterprise, inspiring connection without boundaries and creation without limits. Thank you for tuning in. Here are your hosts, Thom Singer and Craig Brown.
Hey, guess where you are? You have found another episode of the Digital Enterprise Society podcast. Thank you so much for coming along on this journey of this show that we designed to be a resource for those who work in and around PLM. The Digital Enterprise Society, it is a forum for the exchange of ideas surrounding the tools, processes, and practices used across the product lifecycle. To learn more, visit digitalenterprisesociety.org. My name is Thom Singer, and I have the honor to co-host this show for, soon it'll be 2 years. And I co-host it every week with Craig Brown. And Craig is an industry veteran and former PLM leader at General Motors. Hey, Craig.
Hey, Tom. It's good to hear your voice. Hey, guess what? We made it to 2021.
I know. I don't even remember.
There were points I wasn't sure.
You know, was there something that happened last year? I don't even remember. I have already forgotten 2020. I don't remember what happened.
Yeah, we should learn the lessons and then go on, right? So anyways, welcome back. It's good to hear your voice.
Good to talk to you. Every week it's good to talk to you. And every week, for those of you listening, Craig and I work really hard to bring to this podcast interesting interviews and other ideas to help all the listeners enhance and grow their careers. And today we have Kristin Greathouse. Now, Kristin is a certified Scrum Master with Swift Engineering. And what she does is she facilitates Scrum and Agile methodology in software development projects. And she's got a lot to share with us today. So, Kristin, welcome to the Digital Enterprise Society podcast.
Hi, thank you. Thank you for having me.
Oh, we are so glad that you're here. Could you give us a little bit of background on you? Where did you start off in your career and how did you get to where you are today?
Sure. So as soon as I stepped into the corporate world at a very young age, I started looking at business from a different perspective than my peers were. So with an immense amount of ambition, I quickly progressed through my career into residential and commercial property management, construction, then into accounting, and then project management. From there, I ended up gravitating into software implementation, primarily in construction. But this wasn't my initial plan. I always found myself being pulled into these software projects wherever I was at. And I've held several positions over the years, but as I look back, each position has kind of built from each other to help me get to where I am today. So currently, as you mentioned, I'm a certified Scrum Master and project manager in software development. And it's been great. I've had a very interesting career so far.
Hey, Kristin, it's good to hear you. You mentioned software development for construction. Is it always about architecture and building construction, or is it other kinds of construction?
Both. I've worked for several developers as well as the San Diego airport. One of the companies I was with, they do implementation of what's called the PMIS system. Mm-hmm. So like cost control, just various project management software platforms for our clients throughout San Diego and Southern California.
So a lot of our audience are engineers or designers of products, from cars to soap bottles to aircraft and so on. We haven't had as many in the building trades, though. Architecture and building, whether it be making an airport or making a skyscraper, those guys too use digital tools. And so it's interesting. And I thought, as I was reading a bit of the background you shared with us, I thought a bit about we ought to help the audience understand Agile a little better. So you have a different background than say an engineer of a car. So can you summarize for the broader audience, what is Agile development, and maybe how is it different, or how did you come to understand it?
Sure. So to summarize Agile is an umbrella term for several iterative and incremental software development approaches. Approach has its own variations within the Agile framework. So Scrum is one of the most popular Agile frameworks and the one that I study and I'm most familiar with. So how it started back in the 1990s during the software development boom, projects, and it doesn't matter what the project was, it was just software related. They were failing or just taking way too long to complete. So a lot of the industry leaders wanted to find a way to that was more innovative and had to really streamline the software development project process. So this is truly where Agile and Scrum was born. So many people ask, what is Agile? So I give them a very high level example. So imagine you're part of a team that's developing a website, and there's all this work that needs to get done. There's the technical aspect, data structure, permissions, licensing. Where do you even begin? So traditionally, most software projects have been managed using waterfall.
Yeah.
And
which is predominant throughout all of engineering.
Right.
At least when you're engineering a one of a kind thing, you start out with somebody writing down what they think they want, and then you build prototypes, and then you fix them, and then eventually you get something done.
Exactly.
But yeah, waterfall is very timely. It's also usually very expensive because of that. And the truth is, nobody really knows all the requirements up front. That's the great revelation. And so iterative processes are better in this regard, because you can keep checking that you're fulfilling the requirements, even if they change. Right?
Exactly.
So I want to open your mind a bit. Iterative development has been around for a long time in the car business. We never do anything new. Well, we're doing electric vehicles now, but we've been doing iterative tuning. If you have back in the old days, we used to have these stereo systems that had a graphic equalizer, and you could adjust the gain on each frequency bin. Well, in reality, we've been doing that in cars for 80 years. You change the spring in a suspension. You don't change anything else. You just change the spring rate in a suspension to get a different kind of performance, right? In motorsports, people have different springs at all 4 different tires just to handle the course, depending on whether you're on a road course or an oval course. So my point is, iterative development's been around. It's just been practiced by very small groups of people. And I think the software world, I'm humored, you said 1990s. I was doing software in the 1980s, just so you know. But yeah, this forum, there's a group of people that met. I wasn't any part of that, but they met in a place in Utah, Snowbird actually resort, and it's they had some bold words about how are we going to do software different. Well, it's from there that all this came about. And it's interesting, Tom. Snowbird is the resort where we had some of the initial CAD meetings way back in the same time frame. So it's just interesting. We all go there. It's a beautiful place, even in the summer. It's a ski resort, but even in the summer, you can go up there and have a really good set of meetings. So enough of history. What do people misunderstand about iterative or scrumming? It's the word is terrible, I think, because a lot of people think it's something else. But what other misunderstandings do people have about scrums?
So I've seen some resistance and pushback with this framework, simply because it takes practice, and some industry leaders are very set in their ways and are used to managing in a particular fashion. So there has been some misunderstanding about Scrum. So for one to adopt Agile fully within an organization, it does take a great deal of practice, time, and patience. It's not something that happens overnight. And some people may also think that Agile is just a way to deliver software faster, but it's more than that. There are values and Scrum principles that provide this foundation to Agile and Scrum. So to see Scrum succeed within your organization, it does take time, education, and understanding for the entire organization. And that's where a Scrum Master and Scrum Coach is very useful when you're trying to implement this new framework within an organization.
So is there a bias toward quick delivery versus maybe something I would call too hard to do? I remember running into some people and they were practicing Scrum, but they as they went through their backlog, they literally got to a topic that said, oh yeah, that takes an architectural change. That's too hard. Put that on the other pile. And the critic in the room said, well, when do you ever get to the other pile? What if the other pile is, especially if you got a big client that insists on it, when do you get to the other pile? So I'm curious, as a Scrum Master, how do you manage that? How do you manage this conflict of, we got to do it because customer says so, but it's too hard to do?
So this is where understanding Scrum is extremely important in this scenario. So there's this backlog that you mentioned, and there's different roles within Scrum. You have a product owner, a Scrum Master, and a development team. And ultimately, the product owner is the one that dictates what is priority on your backlog. And you have these events that you do. Some call them ceremonies or rituals, but there are planning sessions and reviews and retrospects at the end of what's called a sprint, which is usually 2 weeks. So this is where this discussion is very important during a sprint planning session with the product owner. Sometimes stakeholders or clients that come into this meeting too. It is the most expensive meeting that any organization can have because it's so important and it's long. It's about 4 hours. And this is where this would be discussed thoroughly. If this item on the backlog is important, okay, we now have to analyze it. We need to do break it up. We have like epics and user stories and tasks. We start kind of dissecting it and breaking it apart. And as a whole team, Scrum team, which consists of the product owner, development team, and Scrum Master, we decide how we're going to accomplish this goal for our product owner. So it's very structured. It makes sense to me because I'm trained to do this, but it is fairly difficult to implement immediately. It does take practice.
So when did the light go on for you? When was the aha moment that said, this role of a Scrum Master is really quite important? And you're right, the product owner is the one that makes the decision, but having the facilitator actually takes a big responsibility off of the product owner. This is one of the problems with waterfall is you tend to take on multiple roles, right? And you get confused what role you're playing at that moment. So what was your aha moment? What led you to Scrum Mastering?
So mine was when I was a project manager in construction, and I was just the way that I was handling our meetings and working with stakeholders. Someone said to me, this was many years ago, "Okay, Miss Scrum Master," and I was like, "What is that?"
Yeah. Okay, you were given the title. You earned the title before. Okay, I got it.
I knew I thought I understood Agile, but I did not know what a Scrum Master was. So I looked it up, and from there, everything was clear. I realized at that moment, this is what I was born to do. And I often joke with people and say, I was born to be a Scrum Master because this is how I always have thought a project should be managed. Not just software, but I really value the fundamentals of Agile and Scrum. And that moment that person said that to me and I did all the research, I realized that everything that I had been thinking and processing and the way I viewed a project and business really is explained through Scrum and Agile.
Interesting. And for everybody listening out there, if you're not aware of Scaled Agile Framework, product owners, Scrum Masters, go read. It's very easy to find lots of information out there. And there are enough success stories that it's worth your time. Even if you engineer mechanical parts, it's worth your time. I learned about the funnel and the agile processes mostly by watching laboratories, which were always set up as a constraint because they cost a lot of money. And so the laboratory to test a new engine or the laboratory to test a new fluids thing, the plumbing in a car or whatever. And again, it kind of like nobody was calling the manager of the lab a Scrum Master, but in fact, that they were deciding every Monday morning what was going to go through the lab that week. And on Friday, they would do we called them after action reviews, a retrospect to talk about, what happened. And every now and then somebody'd come into the lab with something that was just misarchitected from the beginning. And you just have the courage on Monday morning to tell them, no, we're not going to do that because you're not ready and hopefully can give them good reasons. So, okay. So here we are with the Digital Enterprise Society. We don't really have a group of people talking about Agile. You have these insights on Agile. Might I suggest we should start a subgroup on Agile development? And it could be, as you point out, it could be for all of engineering. It's not just software.
Absolutely.
So what do you think? Think we should do that?
Oh, definitely.
Of course, what I'm really doing is getting you to agree because I'm retired.
I was going to say, Craig might be signing you up to head a project.
Oh, I am. It's almost an obsession. I absolutely love it. I research it and I can completely take in all the information I can to help me be better and to support my team, but also to coach others and help bring awareness to Agile. It's really interesting.
So another thing that's helpful with these clear roles, and then meeting like we're Zooming right now as we record this, right? So you can work remotely. I mean, this is another cool thing about this is it lets you, in fact, might even encourage you to work remotely because you stay focused on your role in the process, right? In the scaled agile framework. So do you think the pandemic has helped Agile? That's the way I want to say it, but it sounds terrible. Do you think the fact that we're forcing ourselves to work remotely is in fact a benefit to Agile practices?
Definitely. And I look at it through different perspectives. So fortunately for myself, I've seen it be beneficial just because of the work or the industry I'm in. But at the beginning of this pandemic, I quickly realized that I would need to modify the manner in which I communicate with my teams with the human element slightly removed from the planning process. It's absolutely imperative that teams find new ways to communicate. And this is where Scrum comes in. Because even in an office setting, we have these set meetings, your daily Scrum, like I mentioned earlier. And it was very easy to transition into the remote world, in virtual world, because we were already in the habit of doing this. Mm-hmm. And I find that a lot of colleagues, even if they aren't doing Scrum, they've adopted these events where they're doing daily stand-ups or Scrums. Mm-hmm. They're doing the same events that we see in Scrum. Other industries are adopting them as well. So Agile is definitely becoming very important, especially as technology advances during this pandemic. Mm-hmm. We see industries changing, and this is a time where learning Agile and Scrum will be beneficial for industries, definitely.
Well, let's go to the technology front for a second. So what's your favorite advance during the last 8 months? I mean, is it a particular tool or a particular process?
There's one tool that I found. If it's okay, I can share.
Okay by me. I don't get paid by them. Go for it.
I have found Miro to be amazing. Miro. I use it with my teams. They love it. It's very interactive. So, for example, for a retrospect, if you're in a conference room with your whole team, you can kind of read people's body language. But of course, when you're working remotely, you cannot. And a retrospect is one of the most important. I wouldn't say the only one, but it's very important to hold this meeting. And I was trying to find ways, how can I engage my team? I can't see them. I'm not really getting feedback. So Miro, it's a platform. It's like a virtual whiteboard. So people can go in and leave sticky notes, write little notes anonymously. They can vote, put little items in the parking lot. And so I found that to be great, where my teams love it. They're able to express their concerns and provide feedback while still not feeling intimidated by being virtual. Right. Miro's been really great for my teams.
So probably the fact that it lets people work simultaneously and even anonymously where needed, right? Those, I could see those being beneficial, and you can't do that in a face-to-face meeting, right? First, you're kind of forced into a serial approach because it's just polite to let somebody else speak, right? And second, there are people who don't like crowded situations, getting to the whiteboard where everybody else is at the whiteboard. So I could see how those would benefit. Interesting. You mentioned engagement, and I think this is one of the challenges in a remote work. You'll have some team members that maybe they were introverts to begin with, and now they won't engage, even worse. Can you tell with this tool if there's without pinpointing them, if there's a lack of engagement, and does it give you any ways to maybe engage the unengaged, like ask them a direct question or something?
Absolutely. This is what I found. So those introvert, some of those developers who just like to be in their zone, they're actually becoming more vocal.
Because we're remote, they feel safer. That's interesting.
Yeah. So, and I wouldn't just say because of Miro, but I have found sometimes I do like one-on-ones with team members to really kind of just spend time with them and hear what their concerns are. That's not part of Scrum. It's just something I like to do with my team. And that helps me see the big picture through their lens. So
yeah, Kristin, that's a really good skill. Whether you do it in Agile or not, just the skill of listening.
Yes.
And then taking the listening and letting it be a bit more personal. It takes time on your part, obviously, to do that, but it's usually time well invested. And it's the thing, especially when we're all under some crisis, we tend not to do it as much, and it's unfortunate. So, in my many decades of work, I would say the one thing that always surprised me were the really good listeners. They were the successful people, right? And so putting people at ease, that's what you're doing. And I actually think you got onto something there. I think a Scrum Master should be the person that puts people at ease. If not, then you need another Scrum Master, or you need to coach the Scrum Master, right? So
Exactly.
interesting. So how has the pandemic affected you? I mean, are you, well, first you look healthy, so we must be safe, but have your work habits changed, or have you gotten more work done because you don't have to commute? I mean, you're in a populated area of the country.
Yeah, I have sympathy for, those that have been affected during this awful pandemic. I personally know those that have passed and have,
That's not good.
So it's very sad. But that has actually inspired me to be more productive and to really examine who I am and what value I'm bringing to this industry. There's so many things changing around us. Mostly I see it through technology and also the medical industry, of course. And for me personally, I've used this time to educate myself, to learn something new, to do something that I have never done before. And just kind of make bolder decisions, because life is very short. And I found this past year that I love what I do. And I guess it maybe took a pandemic for me to realize how important this role is, especially when things are changing and we're having to be agile, no pun intended. But this pandemic has helped me professionally just really look at things differently.
Interesting. So I don't think we've made it maybe clear on the broadcast. You and I know this. You're one of our future board members starting next year, or this year, as we said at the beginning. But everybody, we're recording on December 30th, but it will be broadcast in January.
You're not supposed to tell people that. It's this is like it's brand new, Craig.
I didn't mean to confuse the audience. Anyways, as you start in your new responsibilities at the Digital Enterprise Society, what do you want the society to do? What do you want to bring to it? What do you hope it goes to in the next year?
Well, as a natural born Scrum Master, I'm really, they call it a servant leader. And I love that title, because that's what I want to do in all aspects of my life, regardless if it's my career or personal life. And I want to bring value and help others. So if that entails just a presentation or bringing or educating or coaching, I really want to make an impact and help. And like I said before, I love Agile and Scrum. It's very important to me, and to be able to help others in other industries and enterprises adopt it makes me happy at the end of the day.
So it's a breath of fresh air to chat with you, and I'm happy to say it's the next generation, not mine. So those of you that know me, this is really good, because this is one of our goals in the Digital Enterprise Society is bringing in the younger generation. And furthermore, your new leaders, we've interviewed both Barry and Adam in recent weeks here. Adam, like myself, comes from the car business. So we have lots of war stories around cars and the whole electrification of where those are going. And, there'll be a lot of exciting times. So I think bringing software development to the forefront, not just tools that engineers use, but also maybe software that's in our products. And especially in cars, there's lots of software, and most of the companies, whether it's General Motors or Tesla or all the rest, they do scrumming, they do Agile, and people in the rest of the business, they kind of crinkle their nose and well, what's all that? Well, that's what we need to do. We need to teach them what it is. So I'm glad you've joined on, and it's been a joy chatting with you. And Tom, I think I'll hand it back to you.
Yeah, no, this has been a fascinating discussion. But Kristin, you said something that I scribbled it down really quick on my notepad, because it was like an aha for me. And that was, you said that along the way, you were doing your job and the clouds parted and you realized what you were born to do. Now, you're a young professional, and a lot of the people who listen to this program are younger professionals, and they're looking to move their careers forward. They're looking for that path that excites them to the level that clearly you're excited about your path. What advice do you have for other young professionals on how to part those clouds and say, that's where I need to be? How do they find their calling?
Organically, and don't force it. And I did this at the beginning of my career. I thought I needed to go to school to be a doctor. That was not my passion. And I toggled with this. And I know a lot of people in my generation do the same thing, where they're either chasing money or chasing what somebody else is doing. It does not work out that way for most. To find your calling, it truly happens organically. And it could be in the middle of the night where you wake up and have that aha moment, or it could be somebody suggesting, hey, go watch that YouTube video, which actually has happened to me several times. And that encouraged this momentum of mine. But it can't be forced. But really, at the end of the day, it's whatever makes you happy. And if that's programming, if that's building something, embrace it and educate yourself and become a subject matter expert, regardless to what it is. It just has to make you happy.
So as people are looking for that happiness, watching those YouTube videos, do you think doing things like finding a mentor is important? Have you had mentors along the way?
Oh, absolutely. I would not be where I am today if I did not have mentors. I probably take on too many. I'm begging somebody to be a mentor. I always am curious to look through things through their perspectives too. Since we have multiple generations working together right now, it's important for my generation to listen to the older generation, because they do have a tremendous amount of knowledge that needs to be passed on. So I value all of my mentors and appreciate them so much for taking the time and being patient with me, because I'm very energetic, but I truly value what they've told me and I listen.
Are you in turn a mentor to anybody else?
I found it's kind of happening lately.
Yeah, it will. You're at the right age. keep doing it. Reach out.
Yeah, and I kind of like, wait, but I appreciate it. I mean, as a Scrum Master, you're mentoring in a sense, but I do find it's starting to happen more and more.
Sure. Well, I can tell that you're going to help take the digital enterprise by storm in 2021. I think that we're lucky to have you on board, and thank you for sharing everything. Any last words of advice for the listeners?
Thank you so much for having me, and just everyone stay safe and healthy, and life's short and enjoy every day. That's what life's about.
Kristin, we will talk with you again at the end of the summer when we reach herd immunity. Got that, everybody? Herd immunity by the end of the summer. Okay.
From Craig's lips to God's ears. That's what we say. So
yeah, if he's in charge, or Mother Nature, or
whoever, it's all good. So thank you, everybody, for tuning in. Kristin, this was a delightful conversation. Please, if this is the first time you've ever listened to one of our podcasts, every single week, Craig and I are here to bring you more thoughts, ideas, and information in and around product lifecycle management. And remember, the Digital Enterprise Society, it is the place for the exchange of ideas around digital manufacturing tools. Go check us out at digitalenterprisesociety.org.
You've been listening to the Digital Enterprise Society podcast. Learn more about what you've heard here today at digitalenterprisesociety.org. Join us again next week for more connection without boundaries and creation without limits.